Hi folks, Wooden Boat Dan here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. The podcast you're about to listen to was recorded several years ago, so some of the phone numbers, email addresses, website links, and time-sensitive information are no longer valid. Please keep that in mind as you listen. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is woodenboatdan@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. Hi, this is Dan Matson, and you have tuned in to the weekly podcast called Hooked on Wooden Boats. This is session number 157. I would like to welcome you to the podcast today. I'm not playing my introductory and outroductory music today just to do something different. Sometimes you got to mix it up. I've been doing this since September of 2011. And sometimes change is good. Not saying I'm going to do this every week, but just going to mix it up a little bit. So thanks for joining me today. I host this podcast on a weekly basis. Actually, earlier in the year, I went to bi-weekly, but for the most part, I've done it weekly over the last 3 years or so. Well, I guess you could tell it by the number 157. This podcast is about a passion I have for wooden boats that I share with people around the world. Wooden boats are a fascinating article, item, piece of art, lots of different things you could call them. But it's just something I love to do. I love to build wooden boats. I love to sail on wooden boats. I love to talk to people about wooden boats. It's just great stuff. I love to work with wood, and so that's why I started this podcast a little bit over 3 years ago. Today's featured segment is an interview I recorded recently with Hugh Harwood. Hugh lives in Cumberland, Maine, and he's got a very fascinating story. His own wooden boat story, plus a boat that he currently owns. I'm going to be talking about that here before I introduce the interview with him in a few minutes. But first, I wanted to say today's podcast is brought to you by Duckworks Boat Building Supply in Harper, Texas. My friends Chuck and Sandra run this small business out of their home. I think it's out of their home. Yeah, I'm sure it is. Maybe they've got some like barns or something on the property, or outbuildings, I guess you'd probably call them. And they do a fantastic job of supplying parts and supplies and plans and sales and just about everything you can imagine to help you build a boat or repair a boat or sail a boat. They got lots of great stuff, everything from screws and nails to sails to anchors to resin, epoxy resin to fiberglass cloth, all kinds of cool stuff. So I would really encourage you to check out their website if you haven't done it. Make a purchase from them. Their prices are very fair, and they have great customer service. You can go to their website by going to hookedonwoodenboats.com/duck, D-U-C-K. That'll take you to a landing page especially for Hooked on Wooden Boats listeners, and you can take it from there. So I hope you buy something from them. I have some new subscribers to my electronic newsletter: Sean Payment, Kevin Foley, Todd Greiner, Rob O'Day, Pim Van Leeuwen, and Josh Allwine. Thank you, folks, for subscribing. I have a almost monthly newsletter, which actually I'm due to send one out here pretty quick. And I just share what's happening in my life with wooden boats and with other people, and give some resources and links and fun stuff. It's all in good fun. No big sales pressure to buy my latest set of encyclopedic books on wooden boats or anything like that, which I don't actually have that. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun, a good way for me to connect with people. So if you'd like to sign up for that, please go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/subscribe. I get lots of fun emails from people during the week, actually sometimes on the weekends too. Recently, probably 3 or 4 days ago, got an email from a Dutch online boating magazine, and the person emailing me from the magazine had listened to the interview last week with Jay Smith, episode 156, which if you haven't heard that, you got to go back and listen. It's really fascinating. Just go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/156. Anyway, this news person asked permission to share my podcast with his magazine audience and to use some pictures on the podcast. And I, of course, said, yes, that'd be awesome. Even though I don't speak Dutch. I don't even know what Dutch looks or sounds like, but he'll publish it in English. Maybe he'll translate part. I don't know. It's just the whole point, folks, is that it was kind of fun to get an email like that from somebody in another part of the world saying, hey, I noticed your podcast. Can I give this information to some other people? That would be cool. Like I say, I get a fair amount of emails. I rarely get somebody with the courage? Maybe courage is a good word, to call my voicemail feedback hotline and leave a message about the podcast. So if you're listening and you are game for that, it's not that big a deal. Trust me, you can leave a message for up to 90 seconds if you go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/voicemail. Now, I always forget if it's voicemail or voice message, so let me double check. I'll be right back. Okay, yes, I did confirm it is voicemail. So hookedonwoodenboats.com/voicemail. I dare you to leave a message. Just give me some feedback about the podcast. Tell me what you're up to. Just be great to get your feedback up to 90 seconds. You can do it from your computer or your smartphone. If you go to that address and press the record button, you are good to go. Okay, so we're coming up to the interview with Hugh Harwood, and I thought I would read you the email that Hugh sent me. When did he send this? January 6th. Actually, he sent it before that. That was my response, but he first emailed December 29th. He says, I just came across your website via the Lynn and Larry podcast. Lynn and Larry party, that is. With your strong wooden boat base, I'm wondering if you can help my husband and me track down the history of Katie Mack. Katie Mack is a Bridgedeck cruiser built in 1932. Documents state she was designed by Ted Geary. Other documents state her designer was Ed Monk Sr. She was built in Vancouver, BC by the McGugan brothers. Or is that McGuger brothers? We have checked older issues of Rudder magazine and looked up listings and city guides for Vancouver and have been in touch with other researchers. Any other suggestions? So my recommendation to them was to contact Casey Cronkite in Port Townsend, who's great at wooden boat research, and also my friend Pat Lown at Wooden Boat Publications, who's the director of the research department there. So anyway, we're going to roll the tape here. Hugh is going to talk about his wooden boat journey from being a kid till now, and he's going to talk about his beautiful Bridgedeck cruiser, Katie Mack. So take it away, Hugh. Okay, it is January 7th, 2015. I am on the phone with Hugh Harwood of Cumberland, Maine. Hugh, welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, Hugh emailed me a few days ago and sent me a beautiful picture of a boat that he owns, a Bridgedeck cruiser built in 1932. Told me a little bit about that and asked about people they could contact for research about the boat to find out more about the history, and that's how we hooked up. And I said, Hugh, let's do a podcast. So anyway, I appreciate you being willing to, anybody around the world can listen to this, Hugh.
Oh, neat.
You could be a celebrity overnight.
Well, I hope they can know of some of the geography of the area or where Maine is. And
definitely.
Know.
So, Hugh, let's start with a little personal biography of yourself, where you're from, and any boating and other fun stuff you did as a kid.
Oh, yes. Well, I grew up in Concord, Mass. We would come up to Southwest Harbor every summer throughout my childhood.
Is that in Maine?
2 weeks. That's in Maine.
Yeah.
That's up in Acadia National Park, Mount Desert Island. People are familiar with Bar Harbor mostly. It's near there.
Okay.
It's paradise in my mind. It's a beautiful spot. And we'd come up for a 2-week vacation and mess about in boats and go hiking in the local mountains and picnicking on the outlying islands, and just a beautiful place.
What kind of boats were you messing around in?
Well, it started off, my brother and I started with flotsam and jetsam rafts, then graduated to a sailfish. I got more formal training in sailing from a librarian spinster who took me out in her Herreshoff 12.
Oh, wow.
That was my first experience with classical wooden boats. And she also had a 1920s 15-foot catboat that she would teach me how to sail in. So I learned how to sail on classical wooden boats and been stuck on them ever since.
Yeah, so what was this raft you were saying guys were using?
Oh, we'd lash together. Things would float up on the shore with logs and planks and lobster warp and lash them all together, and they invariably could barely hold our weight. And then we'd graduate to building boats out of planks that had washed up, and we'd saw them and nail them and fill them up with empty milk jugs for flotation.
Oh, wow.
Days.
That sounds like you guys were having a lot of fun.
No, it's nothing like hanging around and messing about in boats.
Yeah. Did your parents have a boat, Hugh?
Not for many years. There was a boat associated with the place where we were at, and we would get back and forth. It was on an island off of Southwest Harbor, and we'd get back and forth via the mailboat, open launch, and he would come at a certain hour, and we'd go grocery shopping and bring us back. It wasn't until Dad actually purchased a house on the island in the late 70s that we got a open skiff, one of those 16-foot Amesbury dories that we'd motor back and forth on.
Oh, fun. Yeah, very cool. So what did you do after you left home, graduated from high school, went to college? Give us a little more of your biography there. Yes,
went to college and studied religion, of all things. No idea what I would do with that. Went off after college to work at a summer camp for emotionally disturbed adolescents in the backwoods of Maine, taking kids hiking, climbing, canoeing. At one point, I decided that job was way too hard. Those kids were a struggle. And I had taken a emergency medical technician course in college, and for some reason I thought, well, medical school would be easier than this particular job I had, and I would just keep going until I didn't get good enough grades to continue. And I went to Amherst College in Massachusetts for pre-med courses that I didn't take in college. Did that for a couple of years. Finally got into medical school. Did that for 4 years in New York, and obtained a residency at Maine Medical Center in Portland, Maine.
Wow.
And did that for 4 years.
So I've never heard anybody give that reason for wanting to go into medicine.
The job they were doing was too hard, yes. I don't know how it came to me. It just did.
But obviously you made it through medical school and you're a physician now. I made it through
medical school and residency, and I've actually had a delightful career that I'm just about to retire from.
I see. Yeah. So tell me about some of the boats you've had over the years, Hugh.
Well, my first boat was a 28-foot, 1926 Sound Interclub, a class racing sloop of the era. She was in pretty rough shape. I spent a couple of summers working on her, and with my fiancée, soon-to-be wife, doing a lot of interior work, caulking all the seams, trying to get it so it wouldn't sink as soon as we launched her. We ended up actually honeymooning on her in 81 all around the southern Massachusetts coast.
Oh, fun.
And then off to medical school, and she got increasingly tired. It got to the point where the boatyard where I kept her said it would cost $14,000 to get her so she didn't sink immediately upon launching, and we looked for an alternative. We ended up giving her to the Wooden Boat School in Brooklyn, Maine. They had her up there for a number of years. I think they were teaching some of their students how to replace planks on her. Don't know whatever happened to her. Stopped by there a couple years ago, and nobody seems to know whatever became of that old boat. But she was wonderful. We had some great times on her. And then we had started having kids. Next boat was a North Haven dinghy. That's a class gaff-rigged catboat. They're 15 feet long, open catboat. We sailed her down east as well as in the Portland area. We kept her down here. And sailed when the kids were growing up. I remember my wife, my 9-month pregnant wife, trundling over the centerboard trunk as we came about. That was always... That's one of those images that stick to you.
Yeah. Those are a pretty beamy, roomy boat, aren't they?
Yes, that was a great boat. We had a lot of fun with that. And we still have that boat, actually. We still sail it.
Cool.
But in medical school, one of the things that I did for downtime and relaxation was drawing boats. Dreaming about boats and wooden boats and what I would eventually want to have built or purchase. They were everything from small day sailor cutters to coastal cruising sloops. And at one point I took those drawings and an article from Wooden Boat magazine of an old Fife cutter that had been restored. And I took them up to Ralph Stanley in Southwest Harbor and said, someday, Ralph, I'd like you to build me something like this. And then the next winter, there was a knock on the door, and there was Ralph standing there and presented me with a half model that he had carved and all the drawings of this boat. And here I was, a poverty-stricken medical intern, was incredibly embarrassed. I had no money to put into having him build a boat. And I said, well, thank you so much, Ralph. That's great. Maybe someday. And 10 years later, I I said, okay, Ralph, go ahead. And I had him build my sailboat, which is a 21-foot Old English cutter. I'd had the half model sitting on the wall of my office for all these years, staring at it and saying, God, someday that'll be great.
Wow, that sounds like a cool boat.
Oh, she's beautiful. She's a great sailor. We actually sailed this 21-foot day sailor from Portland to Acadia last summer. And would stay at a bed and breakfast or an inn along the way, but daytimes were spent sailing down east. It was quite a trip.
Now, she's a day sailor then?
Yes. Yep. She has no cabin or just an open day sailor.
Wow. And a cutter rig is 2 headsails, is that right?
2 headsails. The mast is stepped a little farther aft than a sloop. They usually have a bowsprit. This one's quite long. It's 10 feet on a 21-foot boat.
Wow. So you got some serious sail area on that boat.
Yes, and it's got a topsail as well.
Oh, my goodness.
So in very light air, she moves right along.
Yeah. Is it a complicated rig to sail, Hugh?
No, once you get used to having all the lines to mess with, the biggest trick was the jib out at the end of the bowsprit. You can't climb out there, and so you have to rig some way to haul it in or out. I finally broke down and put on a modern roller furling jib on it for fear of just going overboard one of these days.
It was probably a good investment, huh?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Do you still have that boat?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really a sailor at heart. Yes, we've just bought a motorboat, but sailing's in my blood.
Yeah. And then, so what after that boat, Hugh?
It was just this last March, the 2013, that I was at the Maine Boat Builders show in Portland. Annual event that I always look forward to. It's in March, and I use it just to get the juices flowing for boating season. And all the local boat builders in New England come to the show and show off their boats. And I was wandering around and oohing and eyeing, and I found myself coming back to one particular booth that had a custom-designed 43-foot powerboat by Doug Hyland. And it was named Deliverance. And I don't know what drew me to her, but I said, that would be really good. I could retire one of these days, and my wife and I could sail off in something like that. And I'm getting older, and sailing might not be the best thing, so a powerboat would be reasonable. And so I went back the next day and looked at more and talked to him a little bit, and came home to my wife, and I said, well, let's chuck everything. Let's chuck the boat, the house, the job, and go off on a boat. And she goes, okay, which shocked the daylights out of me. Really wasn't planning for that.
Yeah.
But that got the wheels turning, and we started looking at boats in earnest that spring.
And so tell us the story of how you found your boat then.
Well, of course, everybody goes to yacht.com on the internet, and always being a wooden boat person, the pickings were slim. I think wooden boats, you'd start off with modern wooden boats, and they're too expensive. And then you start working your way back to older and older boats. The boats in the 70s were ugly, the 60s were ugly. and finally came across a genre of boats called dream boats. They have a more strict definition, but that it's kind of become more generalized to a type of powerboat built in the 20s and 30s, built in the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
And they're just gorgeous boats, a lot of varnish, plenty of room, and looked at, they built similar boats on the East Coast, the Elko. We looked at a 50-foot Elko that had been restored. That was gorgeous. That was in Rhode Island. But a lot of the boats from that era on the East Coast were built differently than the West Coast. They were built as fast commuters for the businessmen of Long Island who could shoot across to New York City. They were built light and fast. And many of them didn't survive. Most of them didn't survive. But we found a good number of boats in the Pacific Northwest. And one in particular we found early on in our looking and said, that's very pretty. And we kept coming back to it. Every time we saw another boat, we'd get back on the computer and look at Katie Mack again. And, that really is what we're looking for. And eventually we decided just to go ahead and buy the plane tickets and go out and take a look at her. And that was in May or June, I guess. And took her out for a trip around, she was in Tacoma, and brought her out into the bay there, and just fell in love immediately with that boat. She was built in 1932. She's 46 foot long. She just has all sorts of character. Designed by Ted Geary, we believe. Some people think she was designed by Ed Monk Sr. And built in British Columbia, in Vancouver. The original owner used her for going up the inland passage to go salmon fishing every summer, taking his kids and grandkids. So we knew she was stoutly built. She has big, closely spaced frames, and she was in pretty good shape. The next day we had her hauled and had a all-day-long survey done, and that revealed a number of problems that came very close to putting me off. Every time he would take off another thing, I would think, cha-ching, cha-ching. How many tens of thousands of dollars would it be?
Yeah.
But the price was right, and we ended up buying her.
Wow.
We put her on a truck and shipped her across the country to Maine, and plopped her in the water, and spent the summer of 2013 driving around Casco Bay, around the islands of Casco Bay, and getting to know her and getting to decide whether or not we were going to invest the money into rebuilding her.
Wow, and so she performed well for you?
Yes, she did. Yep, She was wonderful. She had a lot of water in her bilges, and the bilge pumps went off frequently, and I could think of, while we were out there, I was thinking about all the problems in her frames and planking that the surveyor had found, and knowing that whenever you undertake a project like this, the surveyor can only see so much without actually tearing stuff apart, and any kind of things that need to be doing, you can pretty much double because of all the stuff you're going to find as you start taking it apart. And that's proven to be the case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We call it the mushroom factor, or the while we are here factor. The boat's been in dry dock in a shed in North Yarmouth now for 15 months. We've replaced part of the keel, all the frames.
Wow.
Rebuilt the transom, and starting on the planking.
Wow.
And basically, by the time we're done from the rail down, she'll be virtually all new.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Now, what kind of wood she planked with, you?
A number of different boat builders have looked at the planking, and it's nobody's sure whether it's Douglas fir or Port Orford cedar.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
What I've decided to plank her with is Alaskan yellow cedar. That has a wonderful smell, and it works easily, and it's also from the area, so it's in keeping with the heritage of the boat.
Yeah, very cool. Now, she's a Bridgedeck cruiser design, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and has a plumb bow, plumb stem.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Plumb stern.
Yeah. And she's a fairly
long and narrow.
Go. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which makes her a little more efficient on fuel,
yes.
I would think.
Yep. She's got a 1950s era gray marine in it that I've decided to keep. It's a great old engine. The diesel mechanic that went over it during the survey said it'll outlast all of us.
Really?
It's the engine that was developed for use on all the what are they called? They're the landing craft on D-Day. All had these engines in them.
Oh, really?
Yep, they're designed to be indestructible and simple to operate and service by Iowa farm boys.
Wow. What? How many cylinder engine is that?
It's a inline 6, 2-cycle.
It's two cycle.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
You'd think it would make a hell of a lot of noise, but it really doesn't.
Yeah. Wow. And what's an efficient or comfortable cruising speed for the boat?
She cruises comfortably at about 8.3 knots.
Mm-hmm.
And uses about 3 gallons an hour doing that. So she's quite efficient.
Yeah, that's very affordable, isn't it? So how do you mix the oil and fuel on that boat?
Actually, you don't need to on a diesel. I guess it's sufficiently crude enough that the engineering is so that you don't need to.
Okay, so you just put oil in one place and fuel in the other, and you're good to go.
No, just diesel fuel. That's all, and well, fuel in the sump, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So when do you anticipate she'll be back in the water, Hugh?
Well, we're hoping to have her back in this summer. I've been, telling the boat builders that June 1st is the launch date, and I'd get this kind of uncomfortable silence after that. And so I said, okay, so I'm taking that's not a reasonable launch date. And so now we're shooting for midsummer.
I see. Okay.
I've decided to retire at the end of May and become a third man on the project.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Fun. Because you've done some of that work over the years, it sounds like.
Oh, yes. Yep. I've been fixing and repairing and replanking old wooden boats my whole life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I can do some of it, and they're doing all the boat builders are doing all the important stuff of keeping the water out. I've got bits and pieces and lockers and doors and the helm and everything in my garage and cellar, and I'm refinishing those, fixing things, tearing out all the old electronics and wiring, and we'll be doing the plumbing. They're doing the important stuff. I'm doing all the frilly stuff.
You've probably got a good insurance policy on her, I would think.
Yes. Well, at the moment, she's not worth anything. You can see right from the deck down to the shop floor.
Oh, really?
But she's going to be sensational when she's done.
Yeah, yeah.
And then after sea trials and we get more comfortable with her capabilities, we'll take her down the coast, and then probably down the Intercoastal Waterway next winter, or the winter after. There's a lot of exploring that we're going to do in Maine first. There's so many harbors, inlets, and islands that we could probably spend years up here, but with no longer working in the winters, we could very well head south in the winters and come back up for the summer.
Yeah. Wow. So will you put modern electronics on her, Hugh?
Yes, some. My wife's work she'll need internet access, so she'll have Wi-Fi. I will I've got a modern GPS on her, and an AIS. Not planning on a radar at the moment. Don't want to clutter up her lines with a big box up top. We want to keep her looking as original as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
But who knows, maybe after a couple of frights in the fog, I may end up adding the radar.
Well, this picture you sent me it's an absolutely gorgeous boat. She's really stunning.
She's a real classic.
Yeah, yeah. Now, have you got the dinghy I see in the photo that's on the aft deck?
Yes.
What is that boat?
That is a 9-foot fiberglass Minto, also from the Pacific Northwest areas, I think, where they originated. It's a sailing dinghy, and you can see the mast has a boom on it that doubles as a crane.
Oh, okay.
So you can crane her off the aft cabin top and into the water.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Very cool. Well, so Hugh, when you had emailed me, you were asking who to get in contact with, maybe to find out more about her history and stuff. So
yes.
What I'm thinking, maybe here at the end of this recording, maybe for anybody that's listening, you could just go ahead and make a plea for that information or an inquiry for somebody who might be listening right now.
Yes.
And your contact information, and then, you never know. Somebody might listen to this and have some information. Sure.
Yeah, the boat was originally named the Marbob, M-A-R-B-O-B. Typical in those times of naming it after two kids or your mother and wife or some short acronym for them. Built in 1932, Vancouver, British Columbia. There are a couple of sister ships up there that look similar. I've been in touch with the Puget Sound Maritime Historical Society, and they couldn't find anything on her. But anybody who might have some information could contact me on my email, which is hfharwood at Maine, MAINE.RR.com. Any and all information would be very useful.
Okay.
And thank you for those two other leads that you gave me. I haven't called them yet, but I'm definitely going to be in touch with them. They sound like they could be helpful too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, very good, Hugh. I appreciate you being on the podcast today. And anything else?
Thank you very much for being interested.
Yeah, this is really fun stuff. Yeah, I could talk for hours about these boats.
Okay.
And especially when I get a picture like this, it's just like, wow, this is art, functional art at its finest.
Functional art. Yeah. It's just as pretty as can be.
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. So anyway, Hugh, we're going to end the podcast here in a second, and then let's stay on the phone and chat for a minute. So
Sure.
Thanks for being on the podcast again, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks again.
Okay, thank you.
Talk to you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Hugh, for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. After I'd received Hugh's email, responded to him, I said, hey, how about doing a podcast by Skype and talking about your boat and other fun wooden boat stuff, and he was game, which was really sweet. So thanks again for doing that, Hugh. If you'd like to connect with me, I've got an email address, woodenboatdan@gmail.com, or you can leave comments on my website, or you can go to Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest and look for Wooden Boat Dan. You'll find me there. I've got 10 or 12 or 13 videos on YouTube that you can watch that are kind of fun. Some are instructional, some are just kind of not instructional, they're just kind of video recordings of different wooden boat events that I've been involved with. So it's kind of fun stuff. If you buy stuff on Amazon, you'd like to help support the podcast, please go through my link and then make your purchase, and I'll get paid a small commission, and everything will cost you the same as it always does. That link is hookedonwoodenboats.com/Amazon. I'm also happy to report that my book has been selling, Get in the Wooden Boat Game, A Guide for Building Your First Boat. I'm actually selling more Kindle copies on Amazon than I am electronic copies by PDF. So if you're interested in that book, check it out on the Amazon Kindle website. If you just Google Get in the Wooden Boat Game, you'll find it. And it costs $5.99. So that's pretty fun. The money's just kind of trickling in there. And also, I was going to mention this past week, I continued to work on my Grizzly table saw that my friend gave me that needed a little bit of a tune-up. So I put on new wiring. And yesterday I sanded the top steel deck of the saw. There was quite a bit of rust on it, so I sanded it down to be fairly smooth, took some car wax and waxed it up good. And then I got finished installing the fence, which is really sweet. It's a brand new Fox fence. It's about a $200 fence. Got that working right. I had to tweak it a little bit because it sat a little bit too low on the saw top, so I had to put a couple little plastic pads to hold it up higher off the table. And I think all I've got left to do is the throat plate, which is the plate you take off when you're changing the blade. It was sitting too low. It was sitting below the surface of the saw, the tabletop. So I took it off and found out there were 4 screws missing that are screws you adjust the height of that throat plate with. So I put screws in it. They were metric screws, but the heads of the screws are too thick, so now it sits above the surface. So now I've got to file those down till it sits just flush with the top surface. And as I mentioned before, I wired in a dedicated 20 amp circuit for the saw, so it'll have nice, clean, good power. I upsized the wiring on the saw, especially for the extension cord portion of it. I think I went to a 12 gauge. Yeah, I think it was 14 or 16, went to 12. So it'll have nice, clean, continuous power. So I'm pretty excited. I think it's going to be a great saw for my little project. So I'm getting really close to starting on the Scamp, folks. Thanks for tuning in this week. I hope you have a great week. Wooden Boat Dan over and out. God bless. May the bright side stay up and the barnacled side down. Take care. We'll talk again next week. Bye-bye.